Stop everything you're doing right now. What if I told you that the man who interviewed over 500 of the world's most successful people discovered something so powerful about the law of attraction that it's been hidden in plain sight for nearly a century? Napoleon Hill didn't just write about positive thinking. He uncovered a scientific formula that turns your mind into a magnetic force field. And here's the shocking part. Most people who think they understand the law of attraction are doing it completely wrong. They're missing the one critical element that Hill discovered through his 20 years of research with Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, and Thomas Edison. This isn't about vision boards or wishful thinking. This is about something far more dangerous, far more powerful, and far more real. Welcome to Attraction Magnet, where we don't just talk about manifesting, we dissect the actual science and psychology behind becoming a human magnet for success, wealth, and happiness. I'm here to show you what the masters actually discovered, not what the internet thinks they said. If you're serious about transforming your mental frequency from repelling success to attracting it automatically, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what you're about to learn in the next few minutes will completely rewire how you think about the law of attraction forever. This isn't motivation. This is activation. Let's dive in. Let me paint you a picture. It's 1908. A young journalist named Napoleon Hill sits across from the richest man in America, Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie looks at this 25-year-old kid and issues a challenge that would change the world. I'm going to introduce you to 500 of the most successful people in America. You're going to spend 20 years discovering their secrets. You'll receive no payment except expenses. Do you accept? Without hesitation, Hill said yes. But here's what nobody tells you. What Hill discovered wasn't just about positive thinking. It wasn't about affirmations or visualization techniques. He uncovered something far more profound, a principle he called the invisible talisman. And it's the real secret behind the law of attraction that changes everything. Hill discovered that every single person carries an invisible talisman with two sides. On one side are engraved the letters AMP, attitude of a positive mind. On the other side, AMN, attitude of a negative mind. This talisman is always active. It's always working. The question isn't whether it's working. The question is, which side are you using? Now, before you roll your eyes and think this is just another positive thinking lecture, hold on. Because what Hill discovered goes way deeper than that. This invisible talisman doesn't just affect your mood. It doesn't just make you feel better. It literally determines what you attract and what you repel in your physical reality. Think about it like this. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to have all the luck? Opportunities just fall into their laps. Money finds them. The right people show up at the right time. Meanwhile, others work just as hard, maybe even harder, and they're constantly hitting walls, facing obstacles, drowning in problems they can't seem to escape. What's the difference? According to Hill's research with the most successful individuals of the 20th century, the difference is this invisible talisman, and specifically, which side they're using. Let me tell you about S.B. Fuller. Born in Louisiana, one of 7 children to a sharecropper family, Fuller started working at 5 years old. By 9, he was driving mules in the fields. This kid had every reason to believe that poverty was his destiny. That's what everyone around him believed. That's what society told him. That's what his circumstances screamed at him every single day. But Fuller had something different. He had a mother who planted one seed in his mind that changed everything. She told him, "SB, we're not poor because of God. We're poor because your father never developed a desire to be rich, Nobody in our family ever developed the desire to be anything else. Nobody had developed the desire. Think about that for a second. What does that mean for you? What desires have you failed to develop? What dreams have you let atrophy because you've been told they're impossible? Fuller took his mother's words and turned them into an obsession. He developed a burning desire to become wealthy. Notice I didn't say he wished for it. I didn't say he hoped for it. He developed a burning desire. There's a massive difference, and this is where most people completely miss the boat with the law of attraction. Fuller chose to sell soap. For 12 years, he went door to door, saving every penny. When he had $25,000 saved, he heard about a soap company going up for auction. The price? $150,000. He put down his life savings as a deposit and had 10 days to come up with the remaining $125,000. Or he'd lose everything. Here's where it gets interesting. This is where you see the invisible talisman in action. Fuller went to every contact he had. Friends, investment groups, loan companies. By the evening of the 9th day, he had raised $115,000. He was still $10,000 short, and he had exhausted every source of credit he knew. Most people would have given up. Most people would have said, "Well, I tried. It wasn't meant to be." That's attitude of a negative mind talking. That's the wrong side of the talisman. But Fuller did something different. He activated his attitude of a positive mind in a way that demonstrates the true power of what Hill discovered. He went into a dark room, got on his knees, and prayed. But he didn't pray for the money. He prayed for guidance to find the person who would give him the money. Then he did something brilliant. He told himself he would walk down 61st Street until he saw the first light in a commercial establishment. He asked God to make that light a sign indicating his answer. It was 11 o'clock at night. After several blocks, he saw a light in a contractor's office. A man he barely knew was working late. Fuller walked in and said, without hesitation, "Do you want to make $1,000? Write me a check for $10,000, and when I bring the money back, I'll bring an extra $1,000 as profit." He got the check. He got the company. And eventually, he gained controlling interest in not just that company, but 7 others. He became a millionaire many times over, starting from absolute poverty with nothing but a burning desire and the right mental attitude. Now, here's the question that should be burning in your mind. What was actually happening here? Was this luck? Was this coincidence? Or was Fuller tapping into something real, something tangible, something that Napoleon Hill spent 20 years documenting? Let's talk about what Hill actually discovered about how the law of attraction really works. Because this isn't mystical nonsense. This is about understanding how your mind functions as a broadcasting and receiving station. Hill discovered through his research that the human mind operates on vibrations. Your thoughts, your emotions, your mental attitude, they all vibrate at specific frequencies, and like attracts like. But here's the critical part that everyone misses. You can't just think positive thoughts and expect results. That's not how this works. Hill discovered that there are specific characteristics that make up a positive mental attitude. He listed them explicitly: faith, integrity, hope, optimism, courage, initiative, generosity, tolerance, tact, kindness, and good judgment. These aren't just nice personality traits. They're actual vibrational frequencies that attract corresponding circumstances, people, and opportunities into your life. On the flip side, attitude of a negative mind consists of the opposite characteristics: doubt, dishonesty, despair, pessimism, cowardice, procrastination, greed, intolerance, rudeness, cruelty, and poor judgment. And these frequencies repel what you want while attracting exactly what you don't want. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is what separates Hill's work from every other law of attraction guru out there. Hill didn't just say, think positive. He gave you a formula, a repeatable, testable formula that anyone can use. The formula has 3 parts, and if you're not implementing all 3, you're wasting your time. First, definiteness of purpose. You must know exactly what you want. Not kind of, not sort of, not I'd like to be rich or I want to be happy. Those are too vague. Your subconscious mind can't work with vague. Fuller knew exactly what he wanted, to own that soap company. He had a specific number, $150,000. He had a specific deadline, 10 days. Specificity is magnetic. Vagueness is repellent. Second, burning desire. This isn't casual interest. This isn't, it would be nice if. This is an all-consuming, obsessive focus on your goal. Fuller's mother said it perfectly. Nobody in our family ever developed the desire. Most people never develop real desire. They have wishes, they have hopes, but they don't have that white-hot burning intensity that makes your goal inevitable. And here's the thing about burning desire that Hill discovered. It's not just about wanting something, it's about wanting it so badly that your mind refuses to accept any other possibility. When Fuller was $10,000 short with 1 day left, his mind didn't say, "Well, I tried." His mind said, "There must be a way, and I will find it." That's the difference between people who manifest what they want and people who spend their whole lives talking about the law of attraction without ever seeing results. Third, faith and action. This is the part where most people completely fail. They think the law of attraction means sitting on their couch, visualizing while waiting for the universe to deliver. That's not what Hill discovered. That's not what any of the 500 successful people he interviewed did. Faith, in Hill's research, means believing so strongly in your ability to achieve your goal that you take massive, continuous, intelligent action toward it. Fuller didn't just pray and wait. He prayed, then walked down the street until he found that light. He knocked on that door. He made his bold ask. He combined faith with action, and that combination is what creates magnetism. Now, let's talk about something Hill discovered that most people don't understand: the role of your subconscious mind in the law of attraction. Because this is where the real magic happens, and where most people are unknowingly sabotaging themselves. Your conscious mind is what you're aware of. Your thoughts, your decisions, your intentional actions. But Hill discovered that your conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, your subconscious mind is working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when you're sleeping. And here's the critical insight. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined. It doesn't judge. It doesn't question. It simply accepts whatever you feed it and works tirelessly to make it manifest in your physical reality. This is why visualization works, when it's done correctly. But most people are visualizing wrong. They're doing it half-heartedly. They're doing it with doubt in their hearts. They're doing it while simultaneously feeding their subconscious mind with limiting beliefs and negative self-talk. Hill discovered that the most successful people had trained their subconscious minds through what he called auto-suggestion. They repeatedly impressed upon their subconscious minds, through emotional conviction and repetition, exactly what they wanted and exactly why they would achieve it. Let me give you an example from Hill's research that demonstrates this perfectly. Thomas Edison, one of the men Hill interviewed extensively, failed over 10,000 times before he successfully invented the light bulb. 10,000 failures. Think about that. But here's what Edison said that reveals everything. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Do you see what he was doing? He wasn't feeding his subconscious mind with failure programming. He was training his subconscious to see every failure as data, as progress, as one step closer to success. His subconscious mind was programmed with absolute certainty that success was inevitable. It was just a matter of time and continued effort. That's the power of training your subconscious mind correctly. And that's what Hill discovered separates those who successfully use the law of attraction from those who don't. Let me tell you another story from Hill's research that perfectly illustrates how powerful your mental attitude is in determining what you can attract and achieve. This is the story of Henry Ford and the V8 engine. Ford decided he wanted to build an engine with 8 cylinders cast in a single block. He instructed his engineers to design it. Every single engineer, without exception, said it was impossible. It couldn't be done. The technology didn't exist. The metallurgy wasn't there. It was simply impossible. Ford looked at them and said, "Produce it anyway." "But, sir," they protested, "it's impossible." "Go to work," Ford ordered, "and stay on the job until you succeed, no matter how much time is required." The engineers went to work. 6 months passed. No success. Another 6 months passed. Still no success. The more they tried, the more impossible it seemed. At the end of the year, they came back to Ford and told him they still hadn't found a way to carry out his orders. "Keep working," Ford said. "I want it, and I'll have it." What happened? Well, that engine wasn't impossible, of course. The Ford V8 became one of the most successful cars ever made, catapulting Ford and his company so far ahead of the competition that it took years for anyone to catch up. Now, let's analyze what was really happening here from the perspective of Hill's research on the law of attraction. Ford wasn't being unreasonable or stubborn. He was using the invisible talisman with the attitude of a positive mind turned fully on. While his engineers were broadcasting on the frequency of "it's impossible," Ford was broadcasting on the frequency of "it must be possible, and we will find the way." And here's the critical insight. As long as the engineers were on the impossible frequency, they literally could not see the solution. Their mental attitude was repelling the very information and ideas they needed. But by forcing them to continue working on it, Ford eventually wore down their resistance. Their mental attitudes slowly shifted from "it can't be done" to "maybe there's a way" to "let's try this approach." And once their mental attitudes shifted, once they started broadcasting on the right frequency, the solution appeared. This is what Hill meant when he talked about the invisible talisman. Ford's mind was attracting solutions. The engineers' minds, initially, were repelling solutions. Same problem, same information available, completely different results based solely on mental attitude. Now, ask yourself, how many times have you decided something was impossible before you really tried? How many opportunities have you repelled because your mental attitude was tuned to the wrong frequency? Here's where I'm going to tell you something you might not want to hear, but it's absolutely critical to understanding how Hill's version of the law of attraction actually works. Positive mental attitude alone is not enough. Burning desire alone is not enough. Faith alone is not enough. Hill discovered that every single one of the 500 successful people he interviewed shared one characteristic that was non-negotiable: persistent effort. Not effort. Not hard work. Persistent effort. There's a massive difference. Let me tell you about a salesman named Al Allen who worked for Combined Insurance. One freezing winter day, Al canvassed an entire block of stores, trying to sell insurance. He didn't make a single sale. Not one. He went home that night, discouraged, frustrated, defeated. Now, most people would have taken that as a sign. This isn't working. Maybe I should try something else. Maybe I'm not cut out for sales. That's attitude of a negative mind. That's using the wrong side of the invisible talisman. But Al did something different. He remembered an article he'd read about what Hill called inspirational dissatisfaction. This is a critical concept, so pay attention. There's a difference between destructive dissatisfaction and inspirational dissatisfaction. Destructive dissatisfaction makes you quit. It makes you feel sorry for yourself. It makes you blame circumstances, blame other people, blame the economy, blame anything except your own mental attitude and effort. Inspirational dissatisfaction makes you angry at yourself for not trying hard enough. It makes you determined to prove you can do better. It transforms failure into fuel. So Al went back to the office the next day and told his fellow salesman, "Watch this. I'm going back to that same block, to those same prospects who rejected me yesterday, and I'm going to sell more insurance than all of you combined." And he did exactly that. He went back to every single person who had turned him down the day before. And he sold 66 new accident policies in one day. 66! What changed? Not the prospects, not the economy, not his product, not his pitch. What changed was his mental attitude. He flipped his invisible talisman from the attitude of a negative mind to the attitude of a positive mind. And everything changed. This is what Hill discovered. Success is achieved and maintained by those who keep trying with a positive mental attitude, not those who try once, not those who try until it gets hard, those who keep trying with PMA regardless of how many times they fail. Now I want to go deeper into something Hill discovered that completely revolutionizes how you think about the law of attraction, the magnetic power of definiteness of purpose. Because this is where most people are completely scattered, diffused, and therefore powerless in their ability to attract what they want. Hill found that the most successful people had one thing in common: crystal clear definiteness of purpose. They knew exactly what they wanted, why they wanted it, and exactly when they wanted to achieve it. And more importantly, they wrote it down. There's something almost mystical about the act of writing down your definite purpose. But it's not actually mystical. It's psychological. When you write something down, you engage your motor cortex, your visual cortex, your language centers. You're impressing your definite purpose on multiple parts of your brain simultaneously. You're training your subconscious mind to recognize opportunities related to your goal. Hill recommended a specific formula for this, and I'm going to give it to you exactly as he described it, because this formula has created more millionaires than probably any other single piece of advice in history. First, write down exactly what you want. Be specific. Use numbers. Use deadlines. "I want to be rich" doesn't cut it. "I will acquire $500,000 by December 31st of next year" is specific. Your subconscious mind can work with that. Second, write down exactly what you're willing to give in return for what you want. This is critical. The universe doesn't give you something for nothing. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to learn? What service are you willing to provide? What value are you willing to create? Third, establish a definite date when you intend to possess what you want. No vague someday or eventually. A specific date. This creates urgency. This focuses your subconscious mind. Fourth, create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once whether you're ready or not. This is where most people fail. They wait until they feel ready. They wait for perfect circumstances. But Hill discovered that successful people begin immediately with whatever they have, wherever they are. Fifth, write out a clear, concise statement of what you want, what you'll give in return when you want it, and your plan for getting it. Sixth, read this statement aloud twice daily. Once when you wake up in the morning, and once before you go to sleep at night. As you read it, see, feel, and believe yourself already in possession of your goal. This formula is not optional if you want to harness the real power of the law of attraction. This is how you train your subconscious mind. This is how you broadcast on the right frequency. This is how you activate the magnetic power of definiteness of purpose. Now let's talk about what Hill called applied faith, because this is another area where people completely misunderstand the law of attraction. They think faith means sitting around hoping and believing things will work out. That's not faith. That's wishful thinking. Applied faith, according to Hill's research with the world's most successful people, is faith backed by action. It's belief demonstrated through behavior. It's confidence expressed through courage. Let me give you an example that Hill documented extensively. During World War II, Henry J. Kaiser was told by the government that America needed more ships to transport troops and supplies. The experts said it would take months to build a single ship using traditional methods. Kaiser said, "We can build a Liberty ship in 10 days." The experts laughed. "That's impossible," they said. There was that word again, impossible. The same word Ford's engineers used, the same word that has stopped millions of people from achieving their dreams. But Kaiser had applied faith. He believed it could be done, and he backed that belief with massive action. He completely redesigned the manufacturing process. He innovated assembly line techniques that had never been used in shipbuilding. He worked around the clock with his team, and he built a Liberty ship in 10 days. Then he did it again, and again. He built over 1,500 ships during World War II, revolutionizing the industry and helping America win the war. That's applied faith. That's the attitude of a positive mind in action. And that's what Hill discovered was absolutely essential to successfully using the law of attraction. But here's something Hill discovered that's even more profound. Applied faith is not just about believing you can achieve your goal. It's about believing in yourself as a person worthy of achieving that goal. This is where many people unknowingly sabotage themselves. You might consciously want wealth, success, love, health, but if your subconscious mind has been programmed with unworthiness, with limiting beliefs, with fear, with doubt, you're broadcasting on two different frequencies simultaneously. And the negative frequency will always overpower the positive frequency because the subconscious mind is more powerful than the conscious mind. This is why Hill emphasized what he called automotivators, positive affirmations repeated with emotional conviction that reprogram your subconscious mind. But again, these aren't just feel-good phrases. They're carefully crafted statements designed to implant new beliefs into your subconscious. One of Hill's most powerful automotivators was this: every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Let me tell you why this is so powerful, and why it demonstrates Hill's deep understanding of how the law of attraction actually works. Most people running around talking about the law of attraction tell you to avoid negative thinking, avoid negative people, avoid anything negative. But Hill discovered something completely different. He discovered that adversity, when met with the right mental attitude, becomes one of the most powerful attracting forces in the universe. Let me tell you about Tom Dempsey. Tom was born with only half a right foot and just a stub of a right arm. According to conventional thinking, Tom should have been limited in what he could achieve physically. Most people would have focused on what they couldn't do. But Tom wanted to play football. He developed a burning desire to kick field goals. So his parents had a wooden foot made for him, covered with a special kicking shoe. And Tom practiced. Hour after hour, day after day, week after week, year after year. He practiced kicking with that wooden foot until he became so proficient that he was hired by the New Orleans Saints. On November 8, 1970, with 2 seconds left in the game, Tom Dempsey, with his disabled leg, kicked a 63-yard field goal, breaking the record for the longest field goal ever kicked in professional football history. It gave the Saints a 19-17 victory. Wayne Walker, a linebacker for the Detroit Lions who lost that game, said, "Tom Dempsey didn't kick that field goal. God kicked it." But here's what Hill would tell you. God gave Tom Dempsey the disability. God also gave Tom Dempsey the opportunity to transform that disability into a superpower through the right mental attitude. Tom could have used his disability as an excuse. Instead, he used it as motivation. That's what Hill meant by, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Not might carry, carries. It's there, but you can only see it. You can only access it. You can only develop it if you're using the attitude of a positive mind. This completely changes how you approach obstacles, doesn't it? Instead of seeing problems as reasons why you can't achieve your goals, you start seeing them as the raw material that, when properly processed, becomes the foundation of your success. Hill documented hundreds of examples of this principle in action. Andrew Carnegie grew up in poverty. That poverty gave him the hunger that drove him to become one of the richest men in America. Thomas Edison lost his hearing. That deafness helped him focus without distraction on his inventions. Henry Ford failed in business twice before succeeding with the Ford Motor Company. Those failures taught him exactly what not to do. Do you see the pattern? The attitude of a positive mind doesn't deny adversity. It doesn't pretend obstacles don't exist. It transforms adversity into advantage through the magnetic power of mental attitude. Now I want to tell you about another principle Hill discovered that most people talking about the law of attraction completely ignore: the law of compensation. And this is critical because if you don't understand this, you'll never understand why the law of attraction seems to work for some people and not others. Hill discovered that you cannot get something for nothing. The universe requires balance. If you want to attract wealth, you must provide equivalent value. If you want to attract love, you must give love. If you want to attract opportunity, you must prepare yourself to seize opportunity when it appears. This is where most people fail with the law of attraction. They want to attract money, but they're not providing value to others. They want to attract success, but they're not developing the skills and knowledge necessary for success. They want to attract their perfect partner, but they're not becoming the kind of person their perfect partner would be attracted to. Hill called this going the extra mile. He discovered that every single successful person he interviewed had a habit of consistently doing more than they were paid for, giving more than was expected, providing more value than was required. Why? Because when you go the extra mile, you're broadcasting on the frequency of abundance. You're telling your subconscious mind, "I have more than enough to give." And your subconscious mind, receiving that message, begins to attract circumstances, people, and opportunities that match that frequency. Let me give you a specific example from Hill's research. He told the story of a young man working in an insurance company's mailroom. This young man was making very little money, barely surviving, but he decided to go the extra mile. He started arriving early and staying late. He began studying the insurance business in his spare time. He looked for ways to help others in the office beyond his assigned duties. Most people would look at this and say, "That's stupid. Why work harder when you're not getting paid for it?" That's attitude of a negative mind talking. That's the frequency of scarcity and limitation. But Hill discovered that going the extra mile activates the law of compensation. Within 6 months, this young man was promoted out of the mailroom. Within 2 years, he was a manager. Within 5 years, he owned his own successful insurance agency. And he traced all of it back to his decision to go the extra mile even when he wasn't being paid for it. Because here's what most people don't understand. Going the extra mile isn't about getting immediate compensation. It's about training your subconscious mind to operate from abundance. It's about broadcasting on the frequency of giving rather than taking. And the law of attraction responds to that frequency by bringing you opportunities you could never have imagined. Now, I want to share with you one of Hill's most powerful discoveries about the law of attraction, something he called the mastermind principle. And this principle alone has created more millionaires than any other single concept Hill documented. Hill discovered that when 2 or more minds come together in harmony, working toward a common goal, they create a third, invisible mind that is more powerful than the sum of the individual minds. He called this the mastermind. Andrew Carnegie told Hill that this principle was the foundation of his immense wealth. Carnegie surrounded himself with men who were smarter than he was in specific areas. He brought them together, coordinated their efforts, and the combined genius of that group achieved what no individual could achieve alone. But here's the critical insight about the mastermind principle as it relates to the law of attraction. When you form a mastermind alliance with others who share your burning desire, who support your definiteness of purpose, who believe in your goal as strongly as you do, you multiply the magnetic attracting power of your mental attitude exponentially. Think about it. If one mind broadcasting on the frequency of success attracts opportunities, what happens when you have 5 minds broadcasting on that same frequency in harmony? 10 minds? 20 minds? This is why Hill emphasized the importance of choosing your associations carefully. The 5 people you spend the most time with don't just influence your attitude. They literally amplify or diminish your attracting power. If you're surrounding yourself with negative people, with doubters, with cynics, with people who have attitude of a negative mind, you're not just tolerating negativity, you're actually weakening your own magnetic force. Their negative broadcasting is interfering with your positive broadcasting. But when you carefully select a mastermind group of positive, supportive, ambitious people who genuinely want you to succeed, you create an unstoppable attracting force. This is why masterminds are so powerful. This is why every successful person Hill interviewed belonged to some form of mastermind alliance. And here's something most people miss. Your mastermind doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be a scheduled weekly meeting. Your mastermind can include authors of books you read, speakers whose content you consume, mentors you follow online. If you're feeding your mind with the thoughts and ideas of successful people, you're forming an invisible mastermind alliance with them. This is why Hill emphasized reading as a critical success habit. When you read biographies of successful people, you're literally allowing their mental attitude to influence yours. You're tuning your frequency to match theirs. You're joining their mastermind, even if they lived 100 years ago. Now let's talk about one of Hill's most practical discoveries about how to actually implement the law of attraction in your daily life. Auto-suggestion. Because this is where theory becomes practice. This is where knowledge becomes power. Hill discovered that your subconscious mind is constantly being influenced by your self-talk, by your internal dialogue, by the thoughts you repeat to yourself day after day. And most people are unknowingly programming their subconscious minds for failure through negative autosuggestion. I can't afford that. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the education. I'm too old. I'm too young. The economy is bad. Nobody's hiring. It's too competitive. Every time you repeat these thoughts, you're impressing them on your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind, which controls most of your behavior, actions, and reactions, accepts these thoughts as truth and works to make them manifest in your reality. This is why Hill developed what he called automotivators, carefully crafted positive statements designed to reprogram your subconscious mind through repetition and emotional conviction. Here's one of his most powerful automotivators. Day by day, in every way, through the grace of God, I am getting better, better, and better. Now you might be thinking, that's just a positive affirmation. How is that different from what everyone else teaches? Here's the difference. Hill didn't just tell you to repeat positive statements mechanically. He discovered that autosuggestion only works when combined with three critical elements. First, emotional conviction. You must feel the truth of what you're saying. If you're just repeating words without emotion, you're wasting your time. Your subconscious mind responds to emotion, not logic. You must see yourself already in possession of what you want. You must feel the joy, the satisfaction, the pride of achievement as if it's already happened. Second, repetition with consistency. You must repeat your automotivators at specific times every single day. Hill recommended twice daily, once immediately upon waking and once immediately before sleep. Why? Because these are the times when your subconscious mind is most receptive to suggestion, when the barrier between conscious and subconscious is thinnest. Third, action alignment. This is the element everyone forgets. Your autosuggestion must be backed by action. If you're telling yourself, I am wealthy, while simultaneously refusing to save money, refusing to invest, refusing to provide value to others, your actions are contradicting your words. And your subconscious mind believes your actions more than your words. Hill discovered that successful people aligned their autosuggestion with their actions. They didn't just say, I am successful. They acted as successful people act. They made decisions as successful people make decisions. They invested in themselves as successful people invest in themselves. Their outer behavior matched their inner programming. This is why visualization works, when it's done correctly. You're not just seeing yourself achieving your goal. You're training your nervous system, your body, your behavior to act as if you've already achieved it. You're broadcasting on the frequency of success so strongly that the universe has no choice but to match that frequency with corresponding circumstances. Now, I want to share with you something Hill discovered that sounds almost too good to be true, but it's been verified by thousands of success stories. The possibility of instantaneous transformation through a sudden shift in mental attitude. Hill documented numerous cases where people's lives changed completely in a single moment. The moment they flipped their invisible talisman from attitude of a negative mind to attitude of a positive mind. Let me tell you about Jim Voss. Jim was a criminal. He stole, he lied, he cheated. He worked for the mob, setting up illegal wiretapping operations for gangsters. He was making good money, driving expensive cars, living in a beautiful house. But he was miserable. Deep down, he carried a crushing sense of guilt, even though he tried to ignore it. One night, his wife convinced him to stop at a Billy Graham crusade. Jim reluctantly agreed, just to make her happy. But as he sat there listening to Graham speak, something happened. Graham's words pierced through all of Jim's defenses, all of his rationalizations, all of his excuses. Graham said, "What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul?" Then he said something that hit Jim like a lightning bolt. There's a man here who's heard all this before, who's hardening his heart. He's decided to leave without making a decision. But this will be his last chance. His last chance. Those words reverberated through Jim's mind. Without fully understanding why, he felt himself standing up, walking down the aisle, making a public declaration that he was ready to change his life. That night, Jim was supposed to fly to St. Louis for a mob assignment. He didn't go. Instead, he went home and got on his knees. He acknowledged his wrongdoing. He asked for forgiveness. He committed to making restitution. And his life transformed completely in that single moment. Years later, Jim learned that the mob had planned to kill him in St. Louis. His decision to change, his instantaneous transformation, literally saved his life. Now, here's what Hill would tell you about this story. Jim's transformation wasn't really instantaneous. The conditions for transformation had been building in his subconscious mind for years. The guilt, the dissatisfaction, the knowing that his life was wrong, all of that had been accumulating. What appeared to be an instantaneous change was actually the result of a pressure that had been building until it finally broke through. This is important because it means transformation is available to you right now. You don't have to wait years. You don't have to slowly inch your way toward change. You can flip your invisible talisman right now, in this moment, and everything can begin to shift immediately. But, and this is critical, the flip must be total. You can't flip back and forth. You can't try it for a day and then give up when things get difficult. You must commit with every fiber of your being to maintaining attitude of a positive mind regardless of what happens. Now, I need to tell you something that Hill discovered that should make you uncomfortable. Because comfort is the enemy of growth, and growth is what we're after here. Hill discovered that most people die with their potential unrealized. Most people never flip their invisible talisman to attitude of a positive mind. Most people never develop a burning desire. Most people never create a definite purpose. Most people never take consistent, persistent action backed by faith. And here's the tragedy. It's not because they can't. It's because they won't. It's because they're waiting for the perfect time. They're waiting until they have more money, more education, more experience, more confidence, more support. They're waiting for conditions to be just right. But Hill discovered that conditions are never just right. Successful people don't wait for ideal conditions. They create ideal conditions through their mental attitude and persistent effort. Let me tell you about the racehorse John P. Greer. This horse was bred specifically to beat Man-O-War, considered the greatest racehorse of all time. John P. Greer had incredible potential. And when these two horses finally raced, John P. Greer gave Man-O-War the race of his life. They were neck and neck, dead even, all the way through the race. Then, in the final stretch, Man-O-War's jockey did something he'd never done before. He whipped the horse firmly. Man-O-War responded like his tail was on fire. He surged ahead and won by 7 lengths. But here's the tragic part. John P. Greer never recovered from that loss. His spirit was broken. His attitude changed from positive to negative. He never won another significant race. He became, as Hill put it, beaten off. How many people do you know like John P. Greer? They start with enthusiasm, with potential, with dreams. But then they hit an obstacle. They experience a setback. They suffer a defeat. And instead of redoubling their efforts, instead of learning from the experience, they give up. Their attitude shifts from positive to negative, and they spend the rest of their lives as mediocre, half-hearted versions of what they could have been. Don't be John P. Greer. Be Tom Dempsey, who took a birth defect and turned it into a record-breaking achievement. Be S.B. Fuller, who started with nothing and built a business empire. B. Henry Ford, who refused to accept impossible as an answer. B. Jim Voss, who transformed his life in a single moment of decision. Now let's talk about something practical, something you can implement immediately. How do you maintain attitude of a positive mind consistently over time? Because this is where most people fail. They start strong, they have a burst of enthusiasm, they're motivated for a few days or weeks, and then life happens. Obstacles arise, setbacks occur, doubt creeps in, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, they flip their talisman back to attitude of a negative mind. Hill discovered a formula for persistent motivation through his research with successful people. And I'm going to give you this formula exactly as he developed it. Because if you implement this formula, maintaining a positive mental attitude becomes automatic rather than a constant struggle. The formula has 5 parts. First, develop inspirational dissatisfaction. This might sound contradictory. How can dissatisfaction be positive? But Hill discovered there are 2 types of dissatisfaction. Destructive dissatisfaction makes you bitter, angry, resentful, and paralyzed. Inspirational dissatisfaction makes you determined, focused, motivated, and active. Remember Al Allen, the insurance salesman who had a terrible day with 0 sales? He didn't just feel bad about it, he transformed that dissatisfaction into determination to do better. That's inspirational dissatisfaction. You look at where you are, you compare it to where you want to be, and you use that gap as fuel rather than as an excuse. Second, establish specific, measurable goals with deadlines. Vague goals like, I want to be successful, or I want to be happy, don't work because your subconscious mind can't measure progress. But I will increase my income by $50,000 by December 31st is specific. Your subconscious mind can track that. You can measure progress, you can know whether you're moving toward it or away from it. And here's the critical part. You must write these goals down and review them twice daily. Hill was adamant about this. The act of writing focuses your mind. The act of daily review keeps your goals at the forefront of your consciousness and impresses them deeper into your subconscious. Third, identify and study successful role models. Hill discovered that successful people deliberately choose role models and study them intensively. They read biographies. They analyze strategies. They adopt proven success principles. They essentially borrow the mental attitudes of people who have already achieved what they want to achieve. This is why Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, based on his 20 years of research with 500 successful people. He was giving you access to a mastermind alliance with some of the most successful people who ever lived. When you read and study their stories, their mental attitudes begin to influence your own. Fourth, take immediate action on every idea that moves you toward your goal. Hill discovered that successful people don't just have ideas. They act on them immediately. Not eventually. Not when conditions are perfect. Immediately. Because taking action, even imperfect action, keeps your momentum going. It proves to your subconscious mind that you're serious. It broadcasts on the frequency of achievement rather than the frequency of procrastination. Fifth, deliberately associate with positive people and avoid negative people. This is non-negotiable. Hill found that your mental attitude is dramatically influenced by the people you spend time with. Positive people amplify your positive mental attitude. Negative people drain it. It's that simple. And if you can't physically avoid negative people, maybe you work with them, maybe they're family members, you must consciously shield your mental attitude from their influence. When they complain, don't agree. When they doubt, don't participate. When they criticize, change the subject or remove yourself from the conversation. Your mental attitude is your most valuable asset. Protect it as fiercely as you would protect your physical health or your financial wealth. Now I want to share with you one of Hill's most profound discoveries, something he called controlled attention. This principle alone can transform your ability to attract what you want, but it requires discipline that most people aren't willing to exercise. Hill discovered that the human mind is constantly bombarded with thousands of stimuli every single day. Thoughts, impressions, emotions, sensory inputs. It's overwhelming. And most people's minds are like leaves blowing in the wind, constantly distracted, constantly scattered, constantly reacting to whatever captures their attention in the moment. But successful people, Hill discovered, have developed the ability to control their attention. They deliberately focus their mental energy on their definite major purpose and refuse to allow their attention to be scattered by irrelevant distractions. Think about how radical this is in today's world. You're constantly being bombarded by notifications, messages, news, social media, entertainment, advertising, all designed to capture and hold your attention. Every tech company in the world is fighting for your attention because they know attention is power. But Hill discovered that whoever controls your attention controls your destiny. If you allow external forces to control your attention, you're broadcasting on their frequency, not yours. You're working toward their goals, not yours. You're attracting their vision for your life, not your own vision. This is why Hill recommended what he called periods of controlled attention every single day. Specific times when you deliberately direct your mind toward your goals, your plans, your desires. Times when you shut out all distractions and focus with laser intensity on what you want and how you're going to get it. For most people, the best times for controlled attention are first thing in the morning and last thing before sleep. Your mind is most receptive to new programming during these times. Your subconscious is most accessible. Your ability to impress new patterns is strongest. Hill recommended at least 30 minutes of controlled attention in the morning and 30 minutes before sleep. During these periods, you review your written goals, you visualize yourself achieving them, you recite your automotivators with emotional conviction, you plan your actions for the day, and you reinforce your definite major purpose. But here's what makes this so powerful. Controlled attention doesn't just program your subconscious mind, it activates what Hill called infinite intelligence. He discovered that when you focus your attention with sufficient intensity on a specific goal, you tap into a universal intelligence that provides insights, ideas, and opportunities you couldn't have generated through conscious thought alone. This leads us to one of Hill's most fascinating discoveries, something that bridges the gap between practical psychology and something more mysterious: the role of hunches and intuition in success. Hill discovered that every successful person he interviewed reported experiences of sudden hunches, inexplicable intuitions, flashes of insight that seemed to come from nowhere. And these hunches, when followed, often led to breakthrough success. S.B. Fuller's decision to walk down 61st Street until he saw a light. That was a hunch. Jim Voss's feeling that Billy Graham was speaking directly to him. That was intuition. Henry Ford's absolute certainty that the V8 engine was possible. That was something beyond logic. Hill called this infinite intelligence, and he was careful not to define it too precisely. He knew that whether you call it God, the universe, the subconscious mind, intuition, or something else, the phenomenon was real. Successful people consistently reported accessing a source of knowledge and guidance that exceeded their conscious reasoning. But, and this is critical, Hill discovered that you can only access this infinite intelligence when you're broadcasting on the frequency of attitude of a positive mind. When you're in attitude of a negative mind, when you're filled with doubt, fear, anxiety, and limitation, You cut yourself off from this source of guidance. This is why faith is so important. Not blind faith, not irrational faith, but faith based on understanding that there are forces and intelligences at work beyond your conscious comprehension. Faith that when you do everything in your power, when you maintain positive mental attitude, when you persist with burning desire, help will come from unexpected sources. Fuller prayed for guidance, and a light appeared in a window at 11 o'clock at night. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe his positive mental attitude, his burning desire, his faith in action created a receptivity to guidance that led him to the right place at the right time. Hill didn't claim to fully understand this mystery, but he documented it consistently enough across 500 successful people to know it was real and could be deliberately cultivated through the right mental attitude. Now we're going to tie everything together, because everything I've told you so far, the invisible talisman, the positive mental attitude, burning desire, definiteness of purpose, applied faith, persistent effort, the mastermind principle, autosuggestion, controlled attention, all of it comes down to one fundamental principle that Hill discovered. You become what you think about most of the time. This is the ultimate secret behind the law of attraction as Hill understood it. Not, you attract what you think about occasionally. Not, you manifest what you visualize once in a while. You become what you think about most of the time. This is why Hill emphasized the importance of controlling your thoughts, directing your attention, programming your subconscious, and surrounding yourself with positive influences. Because whatever dominates your thinking will eventually dominate your life. If you think about poverty most of the time, you'll be poor. If you think about illness most of the time, you'll be sick. If you think about failure most of the time, you'll fail. Not because of some mystical force, because your thoughts determine your beliefs. Your beliefs determine your expectations determine your attitudes determine your actions, and your actions determine your results. But it works the other way too. If you think about wealth most of the time, not just wishing for it, but thinking about ways to create value, opportunities to serve, strategies to implement, you'll become wealthy. If you think about health most of the time, proper nutrition, regular exercise, stress management, preventive care, you'll be healthy. If you think about success most of the time, goals achieved, obstacles overcome, progress made, you'll succeed. This is why your mental diet is more important than your physical diet. You can eat perfectly healthy food, but if you're consuming toxic mental content, negative news, pessimistic people, limiting beliefs, fear-based entertainment, you're poisoning your mind and repelling the success you claim to want. Hill discovered that successful people guard their mental diet as carefully as elite athletes guard their physical diet. They're selective about what they read, what they watch, what they listen to, and most importantly, who they spend time with, because they understand that every input into their mind is programming their subconscious, tuning their frequency, determining what they attract. Now, I need to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable, but it's essential if you want to truly understand how the law of attraction works, according to Hill's research. If your life isn't where you want it to be right now, it's because of your past thinking, not your circumstances, not your background, not the economy, not other people. Your thinking. That's a hard pill to swallow because it means you can't blame anyone else. You can't play the victim. You can't make excuses. But it's also incredibly empowering because it means you have the power to change everything starting right now. S.B. Fuller was born into poverty. He could have blamed circumstances. Tom Dempsey was born with disabilities. He could have blamed genetics. Henry Ford failed in business twice. He could have blamed the market. Jim Voss was caught in a life of crime. He could have blamed his past, but none of them did. They all took complete responsibility for their thinking, their attitude, their actions, and that's what gave them power to change. This is what Hill meant by the invisible talisman. You're carrying it with you right now. The question isn't whether it's working. It's always working. The question is, which side are you using? If you're using attitude of a positive mind, if you're focusing on solutions rather than problems, on possibilities rather than limitations, on gratitude rather than resentment, on action rather than excuses, you're attracting success, wealth, happiness, and opportunity. If you're using attitude of a negative mind, if you're dwelling on what's wrong, what's missing, what's unfair, what's impossible, you're attracting failure, poverty, misery, and obstacles. And here's the key insight. You choose which side to use with every thought you think, every word you speak, every action you take. It's not a one-time decision. It's a moment-by-moment choice. This is why Hill emphasized the importance of vigilance. You must constantly monitor your thoughts and deliberately redirect them when they start moving toward negativity. This isn't about toxic positivity or denying reality. It's about choosing to interpret reality through the lens of possibility rather than the lens of limitation. So let's get practical. You've heard all this information about Napoleon Hill's discoveries, about the law of attraction, about positive mental attitude. But how do you actually apply it starting today? Here's your action plan, distilled from Hill's 20 years of research with 500 successful people. Step 1. Within the next 24 hours, write down your definite major purpose. What do you want more than anything else? Be specific. Include numbers and deadlines. Write down what you're willing to give in return. Create a plan for achieving it. And commit to reading this statement aloud twice daily, every single day, without exception. Step 2. Starting tomorrow morning, implement a 30-minute controlled attention session. Shut off all distractions. Review your definite major purpose. Visualize yourself achieving it with emotional conviction. Plan your day's actions. Reinforce your positive mental attitude. Make this non-negotiable. Step 3. Identify the 5 people you spend the most time with. Honestly assess whether each person is lifting you up or pulling you down. Make difficult decisions, if necessary, about who you allow to influence your mental attitude. This might mean spending less time with negative family members or toxic coworkers. Protect your mental environment. Step 4. Choose 3 automotivators that resonate with your goals and commit to reciting them with emotional conviction multiple times throughout each day. Hill recommended, day by day, in every way, through the grace of God, I am getting better, better, and better. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. I will persist until I succeed. Step 5. Take immediate action on at least one idea related to your goal every single day. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait until you feel ready. Act now with whatever resources you have. Imperfect action is infinitely more powerful than perfect planning without action. Step 6. Deliberately go the extra mile in everything you do. Do more than you're paid for. Give more than is expected. Provide more value than is required. This trains your subconscious mind to operate from abundance and activates the law of compensation. Step 7. Form or join a mastermind alliance with at least 2 other positive, success-minded people. Meet regularly to discuss goals, share ideas, provide accountability, and support each other's success. This multiplies your attracting power exponentially. Step 8. Commit to reading at least 30 minutes daily from books that reinforce positive mental attitude and success principles. Hill recommended autobiographies of successful people, inspirational literature, and books on success philosophy. You're forming an invisible mastermind with the authors and subjects of these books. Step 9. Before going to sleep each night, review your day. Acknowledge what you did well. Learn from what you could have done better. Forgive yourself for mistakes. Reaffirm your commitment to your goals. End each day with gratitude and positive expectation for tomorrow. Step 10. Make a non-negotiable commitment to maintain attitude of a positive mind for the next 90 days, regardless of what happens. Not just trying it, committing completely. Because Hill discovered that it takes approximately 90 days of consistent application to reprogram your subconscious mind and establish new mental habits. Let me tell you what happens when you actually implement these principles consistently. Not occasionally. Not when you feel like it. Consistently. With burning desire and unwavering faith. First, you'll notice changes in your thinking. Thoughts that used to dominate your mind, worry, doubt, fear, limitation, will lose their power. They'll still show up, but you'll be able to dismiss them quickly rather than dwelling on them. Second, you'll notice changes in your emotions. You'll feel more optimistic, more energized, more confident, not because circumstances have changed, but because your interpretation of circumstances has changed. Third, you'll notice changes in your behavior. You'll take more action, make better decisions, spot opportunities you would have missed before. Your subconscious mind, now programmed with positive mental attitude, will guide you automatically. Fourth, you'll notice changes in your results. Opportunities will start appearing. The right people will show up. Resources you need will materialize, not through magic, but through the magnetic power of your mental attitude attracting circumstances that match your frequency. And finally, you'll notice something profound. You'll realize that you had this power all along. You were always carrying the invisible talisman. You were always broadcasting on some frequency. You were always attracting something. The only thing that changed was your awareness and your deliberate choice to use the right side of the talisman. This is what Hill discovered. This is what he spent 20 years documenting. This is what 500 of the most successful people who ever lived all had in common. Not luck, not privilege, not genius. Positive mental attitude consistently applied with definite purpose, burning desire and persistent action. But I need to give you a warning, something Hill emphasized repeatedly. This knowledge is useless without application. You can know every principle in this video. You can understand the law of attraction perfectly. You can admire Hill's research and agree with everything I've said. And you can still die broke, unhappy, and unfulfilled if you don't actually do anything with this information. Hill said, "Knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power only when organized into definite plans of action and directed to a definite end." So the question isn't whether this information is valuable. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to watch this video, feel inspired for a few minutes, and then go back to your normal patterns? Are you going to be like the thousands of people who buy self-help books, read a few chapters, and then let them collect dust on a shelf? Or are you going to be different? Are you going to take action today? Are you going to write down your definite major purpose within the next 24 hours? Are you going to commit to 90 days of consistent application? Because here's the truth. Everything you want, the wealth, the success, the happiness, the relationships, the impact, the fulfillment, it's all available to you. The invisible talisman is in your possession right now. The only question is whether you're going to flip it to attitude of a positive mind and keep it there through every challenge, every setback, every doubt, every fear. Hill proved through his research that ordinary people with positive mental attitude consistently outperform genius with negative mental attitude. He proved that your mental attitude is more important than your education, your background, your connections, your resources. He proved that you can start from anywhere, overcome any obstacle, achieve any goal if you master the principles he discovered. But proving it doesn't help you unless you apply it. Let me leave you with one final insight from Hill's research that brings everything full circle. He discovered that the attitude of a positive mind isn't just about achieving external success. It's not just about attracting wealth, opportunities, and accomplishments. The ultimate benefit of positive mental attitude is internal. It's peace of mind. It's self-respect. It's the satisfaction of knowing you're living up to your potential. It's the fulfillment that comes from helping others. It's the joy of growth. It's the confidence that comes from taking control of your life rather than being controlled by circumstances. Hill interviewed Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in history. And you know what Carnegie told him? That his greatest satisfaction didn't come from his wealth. It came from knowing he had used his life to help others rise. That he had developed and applied principles that anyone could use to achieve success. That's why Carnegie challenged Hill to spend 20 years researching success principles. That's why Hill accepted the challenge with no pay. That's why this information exists for you to access today. Because successful people understand that true success isn't just about what you get. It's about what you become and what you contribute. When you develop positive mental attitude, when you flip your invisible talisman to the right side, when you align your thoughts and actions with success principles, you don't just attract external rewards. You become the kind of person who deserves those rewards. You become the kind of person who can handle success. You become the kind of person who inspires others. And that transformation, from wherever you are now to the person you're capable of becoming, that's the real magic of what Hill discovered. That's the real power of the law of attraction, as he documented it through 500 success stories. So here's what I want you to do right now. Before you close this video, before you move on to the next distraction, make a decision, not a wish, not a hope, a decision. Decide right now that you're going to flip your invisible talisman to attitude of a positive mind and keep it there for the next 90 days, no matter what happens. Decide that you're going to write down your definite major purpose within 24 hours. Decide that you're going to implement controlled attention sessions morning and night. Decide that you're going to guard your mental attitude like your life depends on it. Because it does. And then, take the first step. Subscribe to this channel right now if you haven't already, because I'm going to continue breaking down the real principles of success, the actual research, the authentic discoveries of the people who figured this out through decades of study and application. No fluff, no hype, just powerful, practical, proven principles that work when you work them. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video where I'm going to dive even deeper into Hill's research and show you advanced techniques for programming your subconscious mind that most people never learn. And leave a comment below telling me, what's your definite major purpose? What's the one goal that, if you achieved it, would change everything for you? Write it down publicly. Make that commitment. Because when you declare your intention publicly, you activate additional forces that support your success. Remember what S.B. Fuller's mother told him. We're poor not because of God. We're poor because nobody in our family ever developed the desire to be anything else. Don't let that be your story. Develop your desire. Activate your positive mental attitude. Flip your invisible talisman to the right side. And watch what happens when you align yourself with the same principles that created some of the greatest successes in human history. You have the power. You've always had the power. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years proving that you have the power. Now it's time to use it. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep your mental attitude positive, your desire burning, and your action persistent. Success is waiting for you on the other side of your decision to claim it. This is attraction magnet, reminding you that you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. So become the person who automatically attracts success, and success will have no choice but to find you. See you soon.